Hi, everyone. I'm Dyana Limon-Mercado, the Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Texas Votes. I'm so excited to get started for our GOTV kickoff rally today. First, thank you all so much for being here. It's wonderful to see so many people engaged and ready to get out the vote this November. I want to acknowledge that these are extremely challenging times, and I hope you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones. Today, while myself and others are celebrating Mexican Independence Day, 16 de septiembre, and the start of Hispanic Heritage Month, we're also hearing new reports of medical abuses at Georgia's Irwin County Detention Center, specifically the violation of reproductive rights of immigrant detainees. These reports are horrifying, and we must remember that they are not isolated, but a part of a long, dark history of forced sterilization and state violence that harms Black women and women of color. We trust the stories and believe that everyone deserves bodily autonomy to make their own decisions, regardless of their immigration status. We also want to elevate that this is yet another attack on immigrant detainees and part of a bigger fight within the immigrant rights movement to call out the abuse, medical neglect, and violations that have taken place under ICE and private detention facilities. We stand with our partners in immigrant rights and reproductive justice, and with the local partners and leaders leading the litigation and organizing efforts to protect immigrants experiencing these horrific atrocities and abuses. Access to reproductive health care is clearly on the line this year and every year. Texas politicians and national politicians aren't just attacking our right to abortion, they're attacking our right to birth control and attacking healthcare. That's why we're hosting this event today. We're less than 50 days away from November 3rd, and now more than ever, we need each and every one of you to help us get out the vote for defenders of reproductive health and rights. Planned Parenthood Texas Votes is all in, engaging voters and working to shift the balance of power in our state by electing leaders who will fight to expand healthcare and reproductive rights. We're focused on connecting the voters most likely to be impacted by attacks on reproductive health and rights, who are most in need of reproductive health care, who are at the same time those communities least likely to be engaged and represented in the political process, particularly young women of color. This is how we build a more reflective democracy. We have endorsed our most diverse slate of candidates in this year's election, and I'm thrilled that 4 of our endorsed candidates are here to speak with you directly today. Everything is on the line in 2020. This is our moment, and we must get out the vote. One of the ways that Planned Parenthood Texas Votes is working to build a more reflective democracy is by investing in young people. These young people are leading our movement now and into the future. I'm very excited to introduce Alexandria Hernandez and Kimiya Factory, who will be our co-moderators for this event. Alexandria and Kimiya recently completed the Planned Parenthood Texas Youth Power Fellowship, excuse me, and are recognized young leaders in their respective community. Alexandria is a co-founder of Frontera Folks for Repro Justice in El Paso, and Kimiya co-founded the movement #ChangeRapeCulture and serves as the president of Black Freedom Factory in San Antonio. Kimiya, I'm going to turn it over to you next.
Thank you, Dyana. I'm really excited to be here with all of you to get out the vote for candidates who are going to fight for our rights and reproductive health. Co-founding the #ChangeRapeCulture movement was an amazing experience that I got to connect with other survivors and challenge my university's Title IX policies and accurate representation of sexual assault survivors. Change Rape Culture also gave me the opportunity to connect with other grassroots organizations in San Antonio, and support from my community poured in when I organized the #JusticeForFloyd protest following the brutal murder of George Floyd, a victim of police brutality. The death of George Floyd sparked protests around the nation. And for the first time in history, we have seen sports platforms, elected officials, and international support for Black lives to matter. I would like to take a moment of silence for the Black lives that have been lost due to systemic racism and say the names of those who the San Antonio community have lost, but will never forget. Charles Roundtree, Marquise Jones, Antrony Scott, Damian Daniels, and Daryl Zamalt Sr. These individuals were brothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, and friends. May we take a moment of silence for them. Thank you for joining me. To get us pumped up and set the stage for what's at stake in 2020, it is my privilege to introduce Yasmin Radjy, National Political Director for Planned Parenthood Action Fund. Yasmin oversees the organization's federal candidate endorsements, PAC activity, national political partnerships, and coordinated campaign efforts. She previously served as the Director of Organizing and Training at PPAF and Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Prior to her work at PPAF and PPFA, Yasmin served as Virginia State Director at Mobilize America. She is also co-founder of Resistance School, a free online practical training program with over 200,000 participants from 50 states and over 20 nations. Join me in welcoming Yasmin. Thank you so much for your work.
It looks like we're having some technical difficulties with Yasmin, so we're going to give her just one more second to join us. Hopefully we'll get her on. I know you're going to be very excited to hear what she has to say. Yasmin is our National Political Director, and she is helping to lead our strategy at the national level across all of our states about what our path to victory is this November. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get Yasmin back on, but we will certainly try. She's coming back in right now. I think she had a little bit of internet problems, and that is what's happening in our internet world these days. I know we can all relate. So it looks like
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Looks like we got Yasmin back. Happy to have you, Yasmin, and take us away with what we need to know.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It looks like we're still having a little bit of trouble with Yasmin coming back in.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. Oops, can you all hear me?
Hi, Yasmin. Yes, we can still hear you. Not sure if you're able to hear us. We might just want to give it another second and make sure that everything's worked out.
Can y'all hear me? Work?
Yes, we've got you back. We've got you back now, Yasmin. Thank you so much. We can all relate. These are the new realities of our social distanced organizing, and it never fails. That's always how it goes. But tis the life of an organizer. We're always prepared. So thank you for joining us. We are really excited to hear from you about what we need to know about the national strategy to win in November.
Thank you all so much. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so sorry about the technical glitches here, and could not be more excited to join our Texas team. Not just because Texas is all anyone is talking about this cycle as a state that has long been, if we want to call it blue, but I will call it pink, and that we're just going to make sure we are electing all of the pro reproductive health and rights folks that we know are all around Texas, including some folks we're going to hear from later. I'm especially excited to talk to you, even though I'm calling from Washington, D.C., because I'm I don't know if I can call myself a Texan, but I used to live in San Antonio. And San Antonio was one of the very first places where I did political organizing, and where a lot of the foundation of the work that I do now came from the amazing leaders that I organized with and learned from in Texas. And before talking a little bit about the national landscape, I just wanted to share a quick story because I am with all of you from Texas. And that is that when I was living in San Antonio back in 2010, we were doing quite a bit of get out the vote, voter registration, organizing, particularly in communities of color and in immigrant communities. And this is in my pre-Planned Parenthood life. And one day we were doing a big voter registration drive, And one of our leaders out in El Paso, so this is a statewide effort, called the organizer out there in a real state of panic because one of the sort of unimaginably scary situations that folks of color in particular are terrified can happen. She was driving, registering voters, and got pulled over by the police. And, you know, I don't think we need any reminder of just how terrifying that can be for anybody. And in, you know, a state of panic, she didn't know who to call. So she called her organizer and said, I don't know what to do because I'm undocumented and I don't want to get, you know, I don't want the series of things that we know can happen to happen here. So her organizer immediately beelined over to her car, and instead of a tough situation, she saw her amazing leader carrying her clipboard and registering the police officer to vote. And she said, what happened here? And she said, well, you know, officer so-and-so pulled me over because of my broken taillight. We all know that that happens way too often. And she said, and he asked what I was up to, and I said, registering voters. And the officer hasn't registered himself to vote. So I've just been taking time to explain to him the issues on the ballot and which candidates might be supporting the issues that we all care about in this community, et cetera, et cetera. And this moment of real panic that we all know all too well how those kinds of situations could turn, especially for an undocumented woman who is out doing amazing work in her community, so quickly turned into something that for all of us organizing that day and that month and that election season into a reminder about just what citizenship actually means. And this incredible woman who, while not having the paperwork, legal paperwork to say that she is officially a citizen and is able to work, was doing the work of citizenship, of going door to door in her neighborhood, registering voters, and also reminding someone who you know, has the paperwork of being not just a citizen legally, but also a civic leader, and reminding him of his civic obligation. To me, it was a really foundational moment of understanding just what the work of citizenship is, and just how much work in a place like Texas, where it is not that it is an unprogressive state. I don't need to tell you all that. We've got amazing you know, progressive folks all across the country who really believe in the core values of reproductive freedom, of justice, of so many of the things that we all hold dear, and of welcoming the stranger. But too often we are not doing the acts of citizenship, of voting at the numbers that we need to be in order to make sure that the ballot box is reflecting what we all care about. So I'm excited that this cycle, Planned Parenthood Texas Votes is one of the most powerful and amazing Planned Parenthood organizations in the whole country. And this cycle will be no different. They are at the helm of some incredible work and some historic wins. And that's important because that is long overdue in Texas, but also because this is really the year that I think Texas is gonna turn, and we're gonna see all of the amazing progressive values that we know have been under the surface in Texas and not necessarily reflected in electoral results. This is the year where we think that those are going to really shift all the way to the top of the ballot box. I don't think that it's any accident that the Biden campaign is investing in Texas in a way that presidential campaigns typically don't. You all know just how many electoral votes you all count for. And I think what we're seeing all around the country is thanks to the incredible organizing led mostly by women of color over years and years and years, is paying off in the rest of the world, the rest of the country paying attention. We also are so excited that Planned Parenthood Action Fund has endorsed MJ Hagar for the US Senate. We know that flipping the US Senate is going to be a Herculean task, and we just have to make sure that Texas is a part of that math. We only need to flip 3 seats or 4 if we lose the presidency, which we will not, in order to flip the whole US Senate to a pro-reproductive health majority. MJ Hagar is going to be really, really critical to that. And I'm really excited that she is singing from the mountaintops about just how important reproductive freedom is to her platform. I am also particularly excited that there are a number of incredible US House candidates all across the state, in every corner, from San Antonio to Houston to El Paso, all over. We've got some candidates that have a real chance, not just to make sure that we're continuing a pro-reproductive healthcare House majority in the US Congress that is critically important to protecting so many of the issues that we hold dear, but also to making sure that we're expanding that majority so that the people that are really leading the fight for reproductive freedom are the very women of color, people of color, who are most impacted by these issues. And so many of those incredible candidates come from Texas. I myself, as an Iranian American, am especially excited that we could make history that with Sima Lajavardian flipping Texas 2nd District. Gina Ortiz-Jones lost last cycle by just a couple of votes, and we're going to make sure that she is welcome to Congress this cycle. So many others. We've got Mike Siegel, we've got Colin Allred, Sri Kulkarni, who's made history with a multilingual campaign, and I can't even remember how many languages, engaging API communities. Wendy Davis, an incredible Planned Parenthood icon that I don't need to tell you all. The list goes on and on and on. And we've just got some absolutely incredible candidates. And what makes me even more excited, and part of the reason why I was so thrilled to join this call, is so many of those incredible House candidates sit in districts that are layered directly on top of the districts that we absolutely need to flip the legislature. And I don't know, I don't need to tell you all just how important flipping the House to a pro-reproductive health care majority is. I know that it is just a few, it's almost a dozen seats, 9 seats. Dyana made sure that I got all my math right, of 9 seats to make sure that we get to a Democratic majority in the legislature. And that is going to take us one very large leap forward in making sure that we've got a pro-reproductive health care majority in the legislature. And by getting out the vote for all those incredible US House candidates, we will also make sure that we are getting out the vote down ballot, and we know how much is on the line there. Now, that's sort of like all the races that we're really excited about, and that here in DC, we spend a lot of time sort of excited about the wonderful organizing that y'all are doing on the ground to make sure that we're flipping up and down the ballot. But it's not just because we want to win these seats in an abstraction. Dyana talked very eloquently up front about just how much is at stake. We're hearing horror stories all around the country. And this is an election where it's not just about changing the reality for so many people on individual issues. This is an election that, quite frankly, is an existential one, just about our fundamental rights and fundamental democracy. And it is an election unlike any other in a really profound way. It's an election where if we are not organized and we are not getting out the vote and we are not showing at the ballot box just exactly what our collective power and collective citizenship means, the fundamental institutions that uphold our democratic values are going to continue to fray away. And there is no issue where that is going to be more on the line than for the issue of reproductive freedom. We are in a place right now with judicial nominations all across the country. Our courts are stacked with unbelievably conservative, anti-reproductive health, anti-reproductive rights judges that have lifetime appointments and are young, are white, are male, and are going to be in the federal judiciary for, unfortunately, an extremely long time. And so that means when unconstitutional cases are brought forward to federal courts, we have some of the most horrific and conservative people making the decisions about what women and people can do with their own bodies, and our own bodily autonomy is being questioned by people who've been antagonistic towards our basic rights for their whole lives and will continue to do so. Mitch McConnell's talked about how he has never been more excited because there is not a single circuit court vacancy due to his really hard work to make sure that conservatives were ramming through judges. And all of that is something that we're going to have a lot of work ahead to fix. And a lot of that, quite frankly, has started in Texas. And so while everything is existential and critical that we organize around at the national level, so much of, as a native Californian, we always talk about how, the laboratory for progressive policy is in California, and then that spreads all across the country. In Texas, we have the opposite issue of conservatives in Texas have been masterful in organizing in your courts all around your state, in passing some of the most restrictive legislation in your state on women's bodies, on people's bodies, and reproductive freedom. And that has become, a cancer that spread into legislatures all across the country. And so we have an opportunity not just to stop Mitch McConnell by flipping the Senate with MJ Hagar, not just stopping Donald Trump by flipping the White House with Joe Biden, but also by really punching back and making sure that Texas is no longer the laboratory for the very worst policies in the country, but that we're electing the kinds of leaders who are going to put the people that Planned Parenthood health centers serve, in other words, people of color, women, LGBTQ people, back in the driver's seat in terms of driving what the Texas agenda is and reminding the whole country just what Texans actually are and just exactly what Texan values actually are. So I am really, really excited to partner with you all in that. You've got some of the best talent in the country at the helm at PV Texas Votes. And so with that, I will turn it back to them, but I cannot wait for a pink future for Texas, and you all are going to be absolutely instrumental to it.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. You made so many great and eye-opening points that I am feeling pumped. I'm ready to get my friends pumped to go vote, and I'm ready for this election. You made me want to stand in line to vote right now. And I know it's moments like these that make it easier for me personally to get more comfortable and knowledgeable as we head towards the election. It is my honor now to introduce our special guest joining us today. Each of our guests has been endorsed by Planned Parenthood Texas Votes PAC because they're 100% committed to reproductive health and rights and standing up for Planned Parenthood patients in healthcare. And as a Planned Parenthood patient, I have to say the support from these champions means the world. So I'd like to introduce who is joining us today, which is going to be Representative James Talarico, Joanna Cattanach, Celina Montoya, and Akilah Bacy. I'm now going to turn it over to Representative Talarico, who represents House District 52, which also includes Round Rock, to hear about his campaign and why he is a champion for reproductive rights.
Thank you so much for having me. I have the honor of serving as the youngest member of the Texas legislature. I actually turned 30 last year on the floor of the Texas House, the day we were trying to defeat SB 22, the bill that banned cities from partnering with Planned Parenthood. I celebrated my 30th birthday with a pink scarf around my neck. The reason it was important to me was because of what happened 30 years earlier. I was born to a mother who fled abuse to protect me. One night she packed all our belongings into her little Ford Escort and took me to the hotel where she worked. The manager allowed us to stay in one of the rooms while she searched for a place for us to stay. She didn't have a home, a bank account, or a college degree, but she had one thing going for her: you. Planned Parenthood provided healthcare services to my mom when she needed help the most. And for that, I'll always be in debt to this organization. My mother has done her best to repay the favor. She volunteered for NARAL back when it was called TARAL, and she used to take me to their headquarters after school while she helped with their Celebration of Choice event. She still donates $5 a month to NARAL to this day. When I was in 8th grade, she took me to the March for Women's Lives in Washington, D.C., the largest pro-choice march in history. And when I was in high school, she took me to Lobby Day at the Texas Capitol to argue for emergency contraception. So it was only fitting that the day I turned 30 years old, I would be standing shoulder to shoulder with you, with Planned Parenthood, to fight for healthcare for every Texan. That long day ended in defeat, but as I walked off the floor of the House, I looked down at my phone and saw a text from Mom, a text with 4 words: "I'm proud of you." My mother and millions of Texans just like her are the reason I do this work. They're the reason I'm working to keep this seat. They're the reason I'm working for a Democratic House. And they're the reason that I proudly stand with Planned Parenthood every day of the week. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Representative. You and your mother both sound like some great pioneers, and I thank you both for your work. Next, we are going to be joined by Joanna Cattanach, candidate of House District 108. Joanna is running to represent Dallas. Joanna is also an advocate and champion for reproductive health care. Joanna, if you'd like to join us with your remarks.
Sure. Well, thank you all so much. You'll have to forgive the headset today. I'm at home like everybody else with 2 kiddos, and it gets a little loud in my house, but I am so glad to be with you all today and to really be a champion for women's reproductive rights like so many women. I am a former Planned Parenthood patient. It's services that I needed through college in a time where I was uninsured. It's a place where I could find safety and security. It's a place where I was actually getting the only healthcare exams that I could get. As a former foster care child, I was covered for many years under the state's Medicaid program. But once I turned 18, I didn't have health care until I turned 26. And that's a little bit of a scary time when you are a young woman reaching maturity without any kind of healthcare options. And so Planned Parenthood really became a safe haven for me and for many of my friends. I was a Baylor graduate, and we were all very familiar with the local Planned Parenthood clinic in Waco. It has since grown and still providing amazing services. I am now a mother of two, looking to represent State House District 108. This is in the Dallas area. It's downtown Dallas, East Dallas, the Park Cities, and adjacent Preston Hollow and Bluffview. It's an area that we are looking to flip in this election cycle. This is a race that I ran for in 2018 and lost by just 220 votes. That amounts to about 4 votes per precinct. So when you make a call for this campaign or you make a text message for this campaign, please keep in mind that every vote literally counts here. I have had to myself make those calls, myself make those text messages. We have been campaigning for what amounts to about 4 years by the time we get ready to vote in November. This has been the fight that is worth having, though, and so I'm glad to be here with you all. I am facing an incumbent that is one of the many in the House that are the most restrictive on women's reproductive rights. He is anti-choice, no exception, and that's really not where this district is. It's really not where this state is. It's really not where we need to be as a country, frankly. And so it's time we make the real change that we need to make here. As a wife and mother of two, I am now an educator who've had experience at the community college and university level for the last 11 years. I know what it's like to have to be a leader in my community, in my home, in classrooms. To flip this seat would mean electing the first Democratic woman in decades to hold this seat. Keep in mind the first elected female representative in the entire state house was elected in 1923. Her name was Edith Wilmans, and she was from Dallas. It's been that long since we've had democratically elected women in this seat. So it's about time we have some real change in the state house and real champions for reproductive rights. I'm so excited to be with you today. We're excited to kick this campaign off with you. We are so close to Election Day. I'm counting down the seconds and the minutes until we can flip this state house seat and we can bring 9 or more, frankly, friends with us to the Texas State House. I look forward to serving with Representative Talarico, with Akilah Bacy, with Celina Montoya. We have got to know all of each other virtually, and so it would be nice one day if we can see each other in person again and really make a stand for what matters in this state, for women's rights, for reproductive rights, for healthcare for all Texans, frankly. This isn't simply an issue of one type of service that Planned Parenthood provides. For many communities, it may be the only healthcare services that people get, and that matters so much in a state that has the most uninsured, including the most uninsured children. So again, my name is Joanna Cattanach. I'm excited to be with you today. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to the questions. I believe we're going to have a question and answer session soon, so thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and I cannot wait to see your work moving forward. And next, we are going to have Celina Montoya, candidate for House District 121. Celina is from San Antonio and is running to make sure every family gets a fair shot. Celina, your remarks?
Thank you so much for having me today. And, I think all of us working from home, doing everything we can to ensure that we're able to stay connected. So I appreciate you providing this opportunity. One of the things that strikes me, yesterday was the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. And so I've been reflecting on some of the historical moments of my own culture. And it forces me to think about the historical moments within Planned Parenthood. And we are very fortunate here in South Texas, here in San Antonio, to have had Planned Parenthood here for over 80 years. And that's reflective of the history of the organization, which is, of course, over 100 years old. But if we think about where we started and the protection for women, particularly those of childbearing years, and the protection that so many women needed in order to survive, pregnancy and to survive, postpartum issues. This is a big part of the struggle we continue to see in Texas today. And I think this is exactly why Planned Parenthood, it's not just about providing abortion care. It's not just about cancer screenings. It's not just about providing accurate information and sexual education. It's also about saving lives. We're talking about the fact that here in Texas, we have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country. And when it comes to Black and Brown women, it is exponentially higher. And that's exactly what we need in our leadership, is folks who understand that these are critical issues, life and death situations that we are fighting to protect. And the one way we can do that is through ensuring that organizations like Planned Parenthood can provide the critical care necessary for individuals who are seeking not just prenatal and postnatal care, but who are looking to prevent pregnancy in the first place. And those are certainly issues that are being attacked at this very moment. And so having leaders like those who are among us today, Representative Talarico, and I know for sure, future representatives, Bacy and Cattanach, who I would hope to call colleagues soon. It's going to be absolutely necessary to have individuals who not only understand the implications of having organizations like this, but what that does to people's everyday lives. And having been a part of organizations that directly affect the lives of people in this community, of women, of folks who see the gradual improvement that we are fighting for, we need to ensure that we are protecting that. So much has been done with Planned Parenthood in the past few decades, being able to provide hormone replacement therapy to individuals in our community, to be able to provide HPV vaccinations to prevent cervical cancer in young people, and to prevent, of course, not just pregnancies, but pregnancy-related conditions and concerns that have, unfortunately here in Texas led to high rates of maternal mortality. These are things that we all know we need to be protecting. These are all things that we know come down to life or death for a lot of Texans. And that's exactly why we're here today, is to ensure that not only are we prepared to take on that fight and take on that mantle, but that we're doing it together. This is one of the seats, one of the 9 seats needed in order to flip Texas House here in this next session. San Antonio is in a unique position to be able to help change the course of the state and the legislation and the policies that we have being put before us. And it's going to take every single one of us. So I'm so grateful to be here with friends and colleagues and of course, like-minded individuals who see the circumstances we find ourselves in today and just how dire they are and how hard we're going to fight together. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this today, for allowing me to learn continuously from all of you. And we are looking forward to a very positive November, and hopefully that'll allow us to not only celebrate the opportunities that we have to change policy, but also help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Celina. Reproductive health and rights really encompasses so much, and you made so many great points, so thank you for that. Last but definitely not least, we have Akilah Bacy, candidate for House District 138, which is in the Houston area. Akilah is a civil rights lawyer and a longtime Planned Parenthood advocate. Thank you. Akilah, can you tell us more about yourself and why you're a Planned Parenthood champion?
Certainly. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk with, first, Planned Parenthood and the powerhouse workers behind this agency that is very personal and near and dear to me. And then also so many amazing candidates and friends along the campaign trail. I'm so glad to be able to be here with you all. My name is Akilah Bacy, and I'm running for Texas House District 138. This is the seat that the Democrats missed flipping by only 47 votes in 2018. So we are one of the top targeted races, and we are getting numbers back, and our district is amped up, we're ready to rock and roll, and we're ready to flip the seat along with the other ones needed to make sure that we can have a state house that is about health for Planned Parenthood, the work that they do, and making sure that all Texans receive that necessary health care. I am excited to be a voice for Planned Parenthood, not only as a future state representative, but also as a former patient. I think listening here to these other phenomenal candidates and Representative Talarico here is that one thing you learn is that we're fighting for something that's near and dear and personal to us. And I think that's extremely important for our Texas leaders, that we're not having people who are litigating or who are legislating based off of theories or what they are sound bites or partisan sound bites, but people who are looking down at the real personal issues and understanding the importance of agencies and groups like Planned Parenthood. I remember being a law student, about 26 years old, and had just aged off of my mom's insurance. She was a single mom. And I did not have any insurance. And I remember needing healthcare, needed some healthcare. And I said, I don't know how to get any help that I need. And then my friend told me, well, you can go to Planned Parenthood. And I thought to myself, well, I don't need to go to Planned Parenthood, because I thought it was much more of a monolithic service provided. She was like, no, they provide an array of services for people. And then I looked them up. And lo and behold, they did. And what I learned was that aside from getting that healthcare I needed, was that all of the amazing work that Planned Parenthood does, just the wide array of healthcare services they provide to people that are all very necessary. And so I'm so proud to be endorsed by Planned Parenthood. I'm proud to be here with these other candidates, and I'm proud to go into the legislature and fight for all the comprehensive reproductive health care for all individuals. Thank you guys so much for having me today.
Thank you so much to Akilah and all of our candidates, Joanna, Celina, and James Talarico. We are very excited for you all to be with us today. Up next, I believe we have Kimiya is going to help us with getting our next activity up and going for our candidates. Kimiya?
Thank you, Diana. Yes, let's get some laughing going. We've been sitting here for a while talking politics, but I think we need to warm things up. Thank you all so much for being here and for your unwavering support of Planned Parenthood patients and health centers. We want to play a quick game to get to know each of you a little bit better. If you all could please turn on your cameras for the game so we can ask some questions and get this thing popping. Each of you will have a chance to answer each question. This game is Would You Rather. Would you rather share French fries with French fry aficionado Senator Kamala Harris, or binge watch Pose with one of her favorite shows from 2019 with former First Lady Michelle Obama? I will repeat the question. Would you rather share French fries with French fry aficionado Senator Kamala Harris, or binge watch Pose, one of her favorite shows from 2019 with former First Lady Michelle Obama? Ms. Bacy, I see some reaction out of you. Do you want to take a crack at that answer first?
Yes, I already have this answer. I am going with Pose and Michelle Obama under one condition, that we get to start from season 1.
Yes, we're here and we're queer. I love Pose too. Thank you so much. What about you, Ms. Montoya?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with number 2. Maybe we can make a whole watch party out of it. That's I love French fries, but yeah, come on.
Okay. Joanna, James, would either of you like to chime in?
So I'll chime in real quick. As much as I love Michelle Obama, I have to say Kamala, every time she gets off a plane, she has the coolest pair of shoes. So, I mean, respect to what will be the future first vice president of the United States, first female vice president of the United States. But the coolness in Mamala that I want to hang with her. I do. I need some French fries.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Joanna just because I think I would embarrass myself and my family if I ever was in the same room as First Lady Michelle Obama. And I think I could hold myself together a little bit better if I was in the room with Senator Harris, and it wouldn't be such a fanboy. So.
Okay, so we're split right down the middle. I like your answers. No one asked me, but I really, really love Pose, and Michelle Obama's documentary knocked me off of my feet. I was literally on my bed eating French fries, screaming at the TV, crying because it was just amazing. So thank you for your answers. We will move on to the next question. Would you rather go back in time to ride a motorcycle with former Texas Governor Ann Richards, or go jogging with former state legislator and candidate for U.S. Congress Wendy Davis? I'll repeat the question, give you some time to sit on it. Would you rather go back in time to ride a motorcycle with former Texas Governor Ann Richards, or go jogging with former state legislator and candidate for U.S. Congress Wendy Davis? Go off.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back in time and get on that hog. Wendy Davis kicks my butt. Her PT is way faster than mine. So
Ms. Bacy or Joanna?
Sure. I mean, I'm a ride or die with Ann. I mean, that would be the coolest thing in the world. Plus, I've seen Wendy Davis run on those commercials, and it's a little faster than my speed is these days. So definitely want to be on that ride with Ann. That'd be like the coolest ride ever.
Okay. James, Ms. Bacy, either one of you?
Oh, I had to do a little bit of deliberation. I think riding with Ann would be super cool, but I'm going to have to go with running with Wendy Davis, under one caveat, that she's running in the shoes that she did the filibuster in. Other than that,
I can't. What about you, James?
So I love Senator Davis, and she helped me flip this seat. She's one of the first politicians to hold a fundraiser for me when I was an unknown 28-year-old candidate. But I didn't know this question was coming, but here in my house, I have this frame. So this is the answer to my question.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. You came prepared today.
I had no idea this was going to be asked, but I was very prepared for it. So.
Well, would you look at that? It was in the stars.
That's
okay.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for playing this game with us. I feel like we got to know each of you a little bit more. Thank you for the work that you do. I think it's very important that your constituents get to know you, where you stand on motorcycles, French fries, or Pose. But Planned Parenthood Texas Votes is here to get to know you more and to help your supporters get to know you more. So thank you so much for playing this game with me today. While we transition, I want to drop some quick statistics about Planned Parenthood's outreach and what they've done for the community. Planned Parenthood has provided 2.4 million patients, 9.8 million services, 1.2 million people reached through in-person sex education, 177 million visits to PlannedParenthood.org, and 744,776 visits, anonymous conversations, and first of its kind of sexual health information and chatbot. These statistics are from PlannedParenthood.org. We really, really want to highlight the work that is done. Thank you, Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kimiya, and that was a fun game. I liked it. I was not expecting the answers, but I was pleasantly surprised. It was very fun. So up next, I want to talk about one of the most important things that we can do right now, which is connecting directly with voters. I know I personally like to hear from candidates, so I feel more comfortable and confident and knowledgeable as I walk into the poll on voting day, which is why I love that PPTV PAC is hosting 2 virtual phone banks each week all the way up to election day. We will be making calls for endorsed candidates to help make sure that we win in November. We're calling on each and every Planned Parenthood supporter across the state of Texas to join me and plenty other supporters as we phone bank as much as possible. This is how we win, and by talking to voters in priority districts, we will be the most effective. And if you've never participated in a phone bank before, don't worry, it's easy. Honestly, the key to starting is having a good support system and guidance, which is why before each phone bank starts, PPTV organizers will go over how to do everything in an easy step-by-step training. The organizing team will also be there to support you throughout the phone bank, so you will not be alone. If you want to help win in November, this is how. Tomorrow, PPTV PAC is hosting its first phone bank for our very own Akilah Bacy, so sign up now.
I also want to highlight that during COVID-19, phone banking is essential to make the community feel like they're being advocated for, and most likely, most importantly, and most likely being advocated for when it comes to reproductive health, but also their vote. My experience with phone banking during COVID-19 has been an amazing experience. I was able to connect personally with every person that I encountered over the phone. And more importantly, I was able to initiate thanks between myself and the person on the other side for the work that is being done through Planned Parenthood votes. So phone banking goes a long way. And if you ever need any help, give me a call. Now it looks like we're going to take some questions. The first questions that we have are, what are your priorities, if elected, in terms of protecting reproductive health care for all Texans? I believe this question is up for any candidate to answer. You all can turn your cameras on. So I'll repeat the question. The first question is, what are your priorities, if elected, in terms of protecting reproductive health care for all Texans?
I can go first as the boring incumbent in the group. So I had the privilege of co-authoring a bill with a fellow Planned Parenthood defender, Cheryl Cole, who represents East Austin here in Central Texas. And our bill was going to focus on public education. I'm a former middle school teacher. And so our bill was to make sure that there was scientifically valid sex education in every public school in Texas. And I think that's probably the front line of ensuring that everyone is going to have access to reproductive health in their lifetime. So focusing on our schools and our kids and ensuring they get accurate information at the earliest stage of life.
Ms. Montoya, how do you feel about that question?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely imperative that we talk about having education that is instituted through our state board that is accurate, age appropriate, and based in science. And that goes for all topics, really. But one of the things that I think is also critical about the instruction that our children are receiving, including my two that are also attending public schools, is the concept of consent. I think this is something that a lot of folks have shied away from, and it does become a personal conversation, but these are personal issues that are affecting everyone at all ages. And so I think it's important that we talk about not just the science of, the physicality of sexuality and sexual identity and reproductive health. It's also about the idea of consent, and personal space, personal identity, and personal safety.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya. Ms. Bacy, I would like to know how you feel about this question, considering that Black women are disproportionately affected by healthcare in the United States and internationally. How do you feel about this question?
Well, yes, I think one of the first things that we need to make sure that we're looking at is that we're expanding our healthcare and Medicaid. But not only that, but we're using that to include the full range of reproduction options, all the way from preventative measures to abortion access as well. What we look at, and we're looking at our rights, if someone is denied a right due to not being able to afford it, that's discrimination. And that is what we see all the way through. See time and time again. And we also see that a lot of times the voices of women of color in more than just healthcare are not respected, they're not heard until it is there's an uproar or there's a huge campaign behind that voice. And that's something that we need to make sure that we're fighting for, is that we're fighting to make sure that Black women's voices are heard in the hospital room, they're heard in the doctor's office, and they're heard on the legislative floor when we are fighting for bills that will affect them as well as all other people of color, mainly affect people of color as well.
Ms. Joanna, how do you feel about this question as well when it comes to Texans receiving healthcare?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, I agree with all of our participants today, but for me, it's also a question of fighting for and fighting against something else as well. So much of reproductive health care deals with funding. And the fact of the matter is the state of Texas is using your public tax dollars to fund fake clinics, flat out. In any other business, that would be called fraud. And yet we're doing it in Texas. We have women in our district that took it upon themselves to sit around their kitchen tables, and they called every single one of the clinics that have been listed on the state's women's health site. What they found were wrong numbers. I believe one of them was a dry cleaners. The ridiculousness of what is being offered to women, young women, patients in need, and that we are actively funding services that are religious in nature, who are not offering even accurate information. When we're talking about fighting for reproductive rights, we are talking about funding. In 2021, that is the word we have to keep in mind. Make sure that we get proper funding. That means Medicaid expansion. That means making sure Planned Parenthood clinics are funded, but that also means turning around and saying, if you are not providing a service and you are using the public tax dollar to not provide this service, that is called fraud, and we need to have our money back. And that is the job of representatives, to hold these kinds of clinics accountable. So if that means we need to have a live Planned Parenthood phone bank and actively call these clinics again, like the women did in my district, and they called themselves the East Dallas Persistent Women. If we need to be persistent in Austin and get that money back, then that's what we need to do, because it is going to be a fight over funding, I think, in this next legislative session. So I'm happy to fight with everybody there on all of these issues. But for me, that is really a concern that we have to look at, and is absolutely something within the realm of the state legislatures to do that.
Thank you all for your responses. I think this was a wonderful question. And more importantly, I want to highlight that Planned Parenthood is also very inclusive of the LGBTQIA plus community. And that not just women are, need reproductive healthcare services. This also includes trans folk, trans men, trans women. So this is not just a gender exclusive issue. This affects us disproportionately at ridiculous rates. So thank you for your answers. The second question that we have today is, what do you want to share with voters that you have not shared already? This is a chance for your constituents to get to know you a little better as well. So who would like to go first?
I guess I'll go first. It's something that you haven't heard from me already. I am representing the district in Dallas, very urban, but I am from a town called Blum, Texas. There were 12 people in my graduating class. There were 444 people in the last census in my hometown, and I might be the only North Texas rep who can actually ride a horse. So that's a fun fact, and maybe a useful skill. You never know. But pony up over here, I can actually do it. I don't have one, but I can ride one if necessary.
It's not easy to ride a horse, so that's a real talent. Thank you for sharing that with us. Ms. Bacy, how do you feel about this question? What do you want voters to know that you haven't shared already?
So this one is actually kind of tough for me, because I feel like I've been an open book completely on this campaign trail, because that's how I ran. I ran making it clear that I'm sharing my voice based off of personal experiences and experiences of my family. And so, I'm really sitting here like trying to think about something else to share. But I'm kind of at a loss. I think you guys have pretty much, there's somewhere, I think my whole story is out there somewhere. So.
That's completely fine. If anything comes back to mind, like your favorite toothpaste flavor or something like that, let us know. We'll be here.
I hate peppermint. There we go.
Okay. That's what you said. Some people don't like pepper. My mom always had fruity gum growing up, but I'm a peppermint person. So I was like, really? At church.
Yeah, yes. There we go. There we go.
James, what do you want the people to know about you that they already don't know?
Well, I'm really worried that Akilah, who's in a very tough district, just lost the peppermint vote. So even more of a reason to donate to her campaign and make sure that we correct that in the next mailer. So I alluded to this when I talked about, Celina probably knows this neighborhood well. It's a historic, beautiful Mexican-American neighborhood, also one of the poorest neighborhoods in our state. And I loved my students and my fellow teachers, and they are the first thing I think about when I walk into the Capitol in the morning, the last thing I think about when I leave at night. And they are how I judge the value of each piece of legislation that comes before me. So again, it's really important that we elect more educators to office in Texas for a whole lot of reasons, but especially because of the fight on the state budget that we're going to have next session, when our Republican colleagues are going to try to cut funding for healthcare and for education. And we've got to draw a red line and say that's unacceptable in the middle of a natural disaster.
I agree, James. Thank you for your work. More importantly, for educators who are watching us today, thank you for your work during the virtual transition for COVID-19. Everyone at home getting their educations and educating, we love you and we wish you well on this journey. Ms. Montoya, what do you want people to know about you that they already don't know besides your flipping pancakes on Instagram?
Yeah, we've been pretty out there with everything we're doing, but I think that it's best to be personal, right? So, my personal story really is rooted in the fact that my mom raised 7 of us on her own, and she had very humble work afforded to her. She cleaned houses to make ends meet, and she is the superwoman in my life. And so 7 of us all together, and we are all still really close, all my siblings and I. And so one of the things that we've done to sort of commemorate our relationship and always be mindful of that is we all got our place tattooed on our body. So I'm number 4, middle child. My daughter calls this the barn door. I don't know if you guys remember those old like Fisher Price barn with the animals. Yeah, so that's what she calls it. But she's learned Roman numerals. So I'm number 4, middle child of 7, and this for me is just a constant reminder of know where you come from and know who you serve. So that's another thing about me.
Well, I am just so pleased with this. We have a horse riding candidate. We have a tatted candidate, same. We have a peppermint testing candidate, and we also have an educator. Thank you so much for joining us on this Q&A, and we hope to hear more from you soon and get to know you better. The best of luck on you in your road to candidacy.
Thank you.
Awesome. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. If you all can just please join us tomorrow as well for our phone bank for Akilah Bacy in House District 138. When we can win in 2020, and by the looks of this, we will win. We have some amazing candidates just in Texas. It's awesome. Thank you all, and you all have a great rest of your day.
Good job, everybody. We're off the stream on Zoom. Just gonna let the title card play for a little bit with some music, but everybody did a good job. Dyana, good job saving those moments where the internet went crazy, and you did some really good hosting there.
You were quick.